Today I'm going to show you how to fix this yellow seat on a John Deere X304 that I recently picked up. This is a mower I'm going to consider my own, so I will be able to show you long term how this lasts. Got another video that's about to hit 1 million views on seat repairs that I sold that mower like 2 days after I finished it, so I haven't been able to respond to anybody that asks how it's holding up. This will be one that I keep, and I'm going to show you how long it's going to last. If this sounds like something you want to know more about, welcome to the Bald Eagle 242 YouTube channel. First things first, I know we've all used duct tape at some point or another to repair these. In fact, this seat here, when I bought this mower, they had repaired it with red duct tape, so I think if I'm going to use duct tape, I would at least use the same color. You can't get this stuff in the color to match the seat. I've used Flex Seal, which has varying degrees of success, different colors of duct tape. All of those work, but the repair I'm going to show you today is a much better fix than anything I've showed you on previous videos. The first thing you'll want to do if anybody has put duct tape on your seat is go ahead and remove any kind of tape, and then we're also going to remove the glue from the seat so that this is a nice clean surface to work with. To do that, I just use 91% alcohol. You can also use acetone. Both of these products, acetone and alcohol, are both available at your local hardware store or your local drugstore. The acetone is in the form of fingernail polish remover. I personally like to use the acetone, and then you can just wipe this off really well. And you don't want to do a whole lot in one area. Keep your rag wet and don't rub too hard in one spot at a time. Next step in your prep, any of these little fingers or tails that could potentially curl up, go ahead and trim these off. Take a pair of scissors, utility knife, make sure that everything is laying good and flat. But that's what it looks like after we've got it cleaned up. We're going to take the next step. I just like to take a Brillo cloth, just cut this down into a small 2x2 or maybe 2x3, just to make it easier to work with. If you try to sand this while it's sticky from the acetone, it's just going to ball up and roll up, so it needs to be good and dry. How I got the idea for this repair was watching how they repair like large tarps on like a truck, like a semi-truck tarp that they cover up flatbed loads with, or like a tarp for like a, think like a circus tent. What I use is I get a marine grade vinyl, and this is about as close as you're going to get to a match on the color on these seats. It's much thicker than the original vinyl on the John Deere seats. These seats are super thin. Now the product I'm going to use with the marine vinyl is a product called Rochford ExtremeGrip vinyl cement. There are, however, a few extra steps on how you apply this. You don't want to just slap this on there and then stick your vinyl right on top of it. And we're going to get into that here in just a minute. In addition to the seat on this X304 that I'm working on, I also want to show you a much more severely damaged seat. I've already started on this one. I'll kind of be working back and forth between both of them. I'll show you the difference between a minor repair like this, more of a patch, and something like this one that's going to need more of a structural repair. What I'll do on this, when we've got something where we have to actually wrap it around the corner, I put a little bit of glue on this, and I'll wrap this over, and it comes down below this plastic trim on the bottom of the seat. What I want to do is get this formed. Now, I've already put glue on this. That's set up for about 8 to 10 minutes. Then I'm going to go ahead and put this in position where I want it at. We're trying to cover this crack right here up. All right, I actually need to put a little more glue on this, and that brings up another good point. You can layer this glue too, so we're going to put another layer of glue on here, and then make sure we get this covered to where this completely folds over there, so that this area here is also covered in glue. And that'll make sure that this adheres very well. All right, once that sets up for your 8 to 10 minutes, just go ahead and put this back on here where you want it. Fold it down around, make sure it covers all the way under this bottom edge here. Once I get that where it needs to be, then I'll take a couple spring clamps and I'll put this on here to hold this so that sets up right where I want it at. And then we'll just let that set up till we're ready to put that on this seat. Let this sit here for about 8 or 10 minutes. I think the ratio of this is 1 ounce per square foot, so you can put this on pretty generously. The trick is, though, to make sure you let it set up for a few minutes before you try to stick it together. We'll let that sit there for a few minutes, then we'll fold that over to get around that corner again. Once that sets up for your 8 to 10 minutes, just fold that down. Go ahead and clamp it down so it stays where you want it. We're going to let that set up while we go back over and work on this one now. When you're going to make a seam like this, that needs time to set up because we're going to put a lot of stress on that when we stretch it around here. So while this is drying or curing, we'll go ahead and work on this one. This should be a pretty easy repair, but I also wanted to demonstrate you can do some pretty significant repairs on these seats. If you're going to replace this seat with an actual John Deere seat, that seat alone is going to cost you over $200. Even an aftermarket seat's going to be be around 130. We're talking about less than 2 hours worth of work. So I mean, for 2 hours worth of work, I can save $300 or more, depending on which seat I go with between these two seats. One other thing I'll point out here about this vinyl, you can buy this vinyl by the yard. To do a typical seat, 1 square yard is about 14 or 15 bucks. So that's more than enough to do one of these seats, especially if you don't have any repairs to do on the top portion of the seat. You got about $15 in materials for vinyl plus the cost of the glue. And this glue is also sold on Amazon. There are quite a few different brands. This is the one that I have found that works best. So when you're looking for this, make sure you're looking for the Rochford ExtremeGrip vinyl cement. I'll pin some links down in the comment section of this video as well as the video description. But I went ahead and cut one continuous piece to go all the way from the front to the back, even though all we're trying to do is repair this here. And I did this for 2 reasons. One, it increases the strength of this seat because this vinyl is much stronger than the vinyl on the John Deere seat. And also it doesn't leave a seam out here in the middle of the seat where it's prone to have water sit in it. That'll be considerably wider than what we actually need, but that way we'll make sure we got plenty of patch there for that area. At this point, I've got all of my patches cut. I've got patches here that will wrap around all the way down to the black plastic, and they will go underneath the edge of the centerpiece here. Same thing on that side, even though that side's not cracked. And then I did go ahead and I cut a centerpiece for this one too. The bottom edge here is actually longer than what I need. I'll trim this off after we get this glued down so I can make sure that that's going to stay exactly where it needs to be. I'll actually take some masking tape on this so that I don't have glue out here where it's going to be visible. One other thing I should have mentioned there, even when I was doing that little piece earlier on that other seat, read on the back of this can. There are some warnings here that you need to be aware of. Make sure that you've got good ventilation. I've got the door open there. I've got a fan on. Just make sure that you've got ventilation and you read the warnings on this label before you get started using this. One other thing I did, I put some marks on this. Once I get the glue on there, I know exactly where that needs to be. And I did leave a little bit of room here on the side so my glue comes out just slightly past the edge of the patch. That way that the edge of the patch will be completely stuck down. What I'm going to do is go ahead and do these 2 side patches first, get those glued down, so I'll hold off on putting any glue on that for the very center of this seat. We're just going to do this side here, that side there, and then we'll do the center after these are in place. I just use these cheap little chip brushes. They're disposable. I mean, you can get these for like 50 cents at Harbor Freight or someplace like that, and you just chuck it in the trash when you're done with it. First thing I'll do is go ahead and brush the adhesive onto the patches themselves. Just make sure you don't move your patch and get it on some of the stuff that you get on the cardboard underneath. Move it over here so I don't get it in any of this on the back side. Go ahead and do the same thing on this one. Go ahead and let those set up there. Again, 8 minutes or so seems to be the magic number for me. Different temperatures, different climates, maybe a little different for you. And this is the important part here, is make sure you put the adhesive on both pieces that you're going to attach together so it's glue to glue once you connect them. Not worried about going inside too far here. I just don't want to get outside the edges of this tape too much. I'll put a pretty generous amount down here on this plastic base. So we're going to tuck that down in there, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. Alright, got that fully covered. I'll do the other side here. Just do the same thing on this side. Does help if you're doing this still on the mower too. You might want to put a piece of cardboard or something on your fenders just in case you drip some down on it. Or you can take the whole seat off of here and work on it outside. That's all you do there. Well, we're going to let this set for about 7 more minutes. Another thing I found here, if you take your brush and put it in a poly bag, kind of seal that up, that'll last until you're ready for it the next time. A couple other things I'll show you here while we're waiting for this glue to set up a little bit. This is a plastic trim, like for door trims and moldings. This works real well to get that vinyl down and around the base of that seat. I like using the plastic instead of metal. And then I've also got a couple small rollers. I don't remember exactly where I got these, but I looked them up on Amazon. You can get a set of 3 of these for less than 10 bucks. If you don't have a roller, I've just used like this as a handle off of a file. And that helps to get any air pockets or bubbles out from underneath it once you stick it down. All right, it's been about 8 minutes. Go ahead and take our patch here, and you can see from the gloss there, it appears to be relatively dry. That's the kind of tackiness you want. You can put another layer of adhesive on here if you want. In my experience, I haven't needed to do that, but if you want to feel more comfortable making sure this is secure, put another layer on here, wait another 6 to 8 minutes, and then put it on. We're going to go ahead and put it on. And this side looks about the same way. You know what, I forgot to pull my tape off too. Should have pulled this tape off when that was still wet. We don't need that at this point. And we're going to take this edge, line it up with our marks there. I'll take a small roller. Once you get that front edge down, then you can kind of pull this tight so it forms better to the seat, and just roll this as you pull it around there. Just going to roll this around here. You can see this edge here is still hanging over. Just keep that tight so it forms to that seat, and then this is where this comes in handy. We're just going to take this and force it down in there. We'll trim this off after it starts to set up. That actually helps to keep it tight against there, and then we'll just come back and we'll push this out of the way and trim this off after it sets up. We'll go ahead and get this one now. We're going to do the same thing over there. And get our tape out of the way. Just make sure you got the overhang down here on this edge before you tack it down. Tighten that down, pull it snug. I'm pulling pretty tight on that, and roll it all the way around to this bottom edge. One more thing I did here before I put the glue on this, I went ahead and ran the tape so I could tape that down there. Left a little bit of a gap there. Once we match that down, there'll be a little bit of a gap there, so we can go ahead and put the glue on the seat now and this patch. That little trick of putting the brush in this poly bag, let's just pull that out, and then that's still pliable and usable. All right, let the fun begin. Just before this glue sets up, I'll go ahead and pull this tape off. That way we're not going to get the tape embedded in the seat. All right, once that's set up for the required time period, we're going to try to very carefully pull this back through the back here without touching the seat until we're ready to set it down. Not very forgiving if you get it in the wrong spot. Now we'll go ahead and trim this off a little bit back here. And I'll go ahead and roll this down on this front edge here. Then I'm going to take this tool again, stretch this as tight as I can from one side to the other. And then just work this up in there. I'll leave the extra there until it sets. It'll help hold it in place. That should give us a nice edge there around that front. And then we'll do the same thing back here on the back. Might have got a little dry back here. I'm going to put a little bit more glue on this corner. Let that set up there a little bit before I stick that down. Alright, and once that's set up for a little bit there, I'll go ahead and roll that on around there and tuck that in as best I can. Alright, we're going to let that one set up. Go work on this one again. The major difference between this one is it actually has parts of the foam missing, so I took some scrap pieces of foam rubber. Let's go ahead and fill in these gaps, and I'm going to take the same glue and glue these down into the seat, and then once we put the vinyl over it, it'll mash that down. That'll give it some support here so it has some structural integrity to it. They also sell this glue in a little 4-ounce can on their website, so if you're looking for just a small repair, you can get the little 4 or 8-ounce cans on their website. But what I'll do in this case, go ahead and put the glue right on the foam, and I'll put these little pieces of foam in there to fill in these voids, and that will help to make sure that this vinyl doesn't get sucked down into these little grooves. You won't see the divots in the vinyl so bad. The foam will help to fill all that in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of helps to make it look a little better when we're done here. I mean, this is an old mower here. This isn't really anything special, but I just wanted to show you that this can be done on something that's pretty severely damaged. If you're doing this on a seat that you're not going to be doing the center part here, just be careful you don't drip the glue on it. I really don't care if I drip here on the center because we're going to be covering it up anyway. Still go ahead and put this on both halves of the foam. There is a special glue that you can get for foam. I just use the vinyl glue right on the foam, which is not ideal, but all it's got to do is really hold it in place until we get the vinyl on the top of it. I don't think we really need to leave it set up for the full time period. I think probably a minute, maybe 2 minutes is about all you need to let this set up. All right, once that sets up, just gets a little tacky. Go ahead and form these pieces down in here. Nothing fancy. We'll let that set up a little bit. and then we'll put our patch on over the top of it. The vinyl's going to push this down, so if it's a little bit taller than what your seat actually is, that's fine. And I will show you here, I did go ahead and put the patch on this side. This patch was put on here about an hour ago, but that's how that side turned out. Our foam has had a little bit of time to set up there now. It's stuck in place there pretty good. Doesn't take much to hold it in. We're just holding it until we get the vinyl on. I'll go ahead and put the glue on here, let it set up. I'm gonna throw this thing together really quick, and then we're gonna go around and trim the excess off the edge of this, and then I'm gonna show you a final result on both of these seats. I want to show you here, I wasn't real happy with the way this laid down, so I went ahead and cut another piece, waiting for the glue to set up now. So I'll take this piece and overlap this here so it'll have a much better edge down here at the bottom. After you get this all tacked down, just take a utility knife. I've got a brand new sharp blade in this. Just be extremely careful with that. And then keep your knife against the seat, so if you slip, the point doesn't hit the new vinyl. And we're just going to follow right along the base edge of the seat. Once we get this cut off, I will try to go ahead and push the rest of it down into the seat. That gives us a nice clean edge right there across the bottom. Something else you can do here on these edges, you can pleat these, or you can actually cut a V out of this and then join them together right there. That didn't turn out as well as I would like. You can kind of play around with that if you want. You can make that look a lot better, but for a functional repair that's not going to let the foam get wet, this will definitely do what I need it to do. Anyway, you get the idea there. I'll spend a little bit more time off camera, so I'm not wasting time on film here to cut this down. We'll do the same thing on this one over here. Anyway, you get the idea there. I'll go ahead and clean this up here off camera and then show you what we got. Guys, if you made it this far, I do want to say thank you for sticking around. Now, to get to what you want to see here, this is the seat on the John Deere X304. I also have a hood repair video on this mower. I'll link that right up here at the top, but this is what we came up with the patch on this seat. This is a very tight bond. I mean, even if you want to pull this off, you really can't. And I assure you that this will outlast the Plastidip. It'll definitely outlast your duct tape. And I think this will even outlast a seat cover. And you don't have to worry about the wetness that gets on the seat cover. This, you can literally just flip it up, dump the water off. You can't do that with a seat cover. All right, then we got our problem child over here. This is literally a seat that I wouldn't even have tried to repair. This is one I would have replaced. But I wanted to show you guys that you can do this with a pretty substantially damaged seat. This entire side over here was basically destroyed from the elements. There was a crack that went all the way up here. That's why I tried to run this bottom piece of vinyl up there to cover that up. In hindsight, I would have cut this off down here and brought a much smaller piece down. You could probably pleat these sides so you don't have this folded edge there. This is functional, but it's not very pretty. You could spend a little extra time on that, do a little better job on that. You could even piece it together. I even think you could probably cut a V out of this and then just bring the two pieces together on the corner. I'm sure that could be much better, but this is very, very functional. Should get the job done. Definitely going to keep the water out of the seat. I'm sure this will probably outlast the mower. This is off of an LT 160, so that mower's already pretty old. I do appreciate you sticking around. Thanks for watching. Until next time.